Hello and welcome to Everywoman. I'm Shuli Ghosh. On the programme this week, raped again and again. The women used as sexual slaves by the Japanese army. Forced to fight, a former child soldier tells us of the horrors she endured. And the sit-in is over. Egyptian women striking for better pay emerge victorious. But first, it's widely accepted that the quality of life in less developed countries would be greatly improved by better family planning. Demand for birth control has been rising, but in the poorest countries, needs just aren't being met. Access to contraceptives in places like Africa is almost entirely dependent on foreign aid, namely funding from the US. But these services have been put at risk because of a law first passed by Ronald Reagan and reinstated by George Bush in 2001. The global gag rule, as it's known, prevents overseas organisations from receiving a single cent if they offer or promote abortion as a family planning option. The aim was to reduce abortions worldwide, but critics say it does the very opposite. Though Congress has recently voted to partially reverse the ban, it is widely assumed that Bush will veto the ruling. Well, joining us now from Kenya is Sanda Ojiambo from the International Planned Parenthood Federation. Thank you very much for joining us, Sanda. First of all, just put it into context for us. How important is US funding for family planning organisations?
US funding has been critical for the provision of comprehensive reproductive health services for all of our work across Africa. We have noticed a remarked decline in the quality of services as well as the scale of services that we've been able to provide since the global gag rule came into place in 1984 and then was reinstated in 2001.
What it means is that organisations who choose to offer abortion as part of their services, they lose the funding and then people lose all the other services, the contraceptives, the health care, the advice, the information.
That's absolutely it. The global gag rule actually targets all of the reproductive health services that we offer to women, to children, and to the broader general population. This includes, for example, critical services to prevent HIV/AIDS, to care and support for people living with and affected by HIV/AIDS. It also affects maternal and child health, as well as a whole other range of reproductive health services. So the impact of the global gag rule has actually spanned across the entire continuum of reproductive health and health in general.
So what changes are you seeing because of the global gag rule?
We have seen the number of clients that we serve decline. We have seen that we are not able to scale up services across countries. We have seen that with the reduction of funding, we're not able to enhance quality of care. We have also seen change in some of the health indices in some of our countries, and this is testament to the fact that without the continued funding from the US government, health as a whole continues to suffer.
And doesn't this make you very angry? Because it seems as though President Bush and the US are imposing their beliefs, their political will on groups like your own overseas.
Absolutely so. I think the global gag rule has put ideology before public health. And public health should be an issue of global concern, and it should not be defined by ideology. It is critical to have continued funding for reproductive health across all of our countries. We need to be sure that our services go to the poor, the vulnerable, to internally displaced people, to refugees, and to people who are just not able to access critical health services.
And of course, if there's a decline in services, if women simply aren't getting access to contraceptives or family planning advice, then abortion levels might actually be going up.
It's very difficult to make a direct correlation on this because we do not have complete data on what happens in terms of unsafe abortion. It's often something that goes on clandestine. When we do know about unsafe abortion, it's when women present themselves to clinics to seek treatment in terms of managing complications from unsafe abortion. We do have one instance in our project in Ghana where we know that when contraceptive services declined, there was an almost 100% increase in the number of women who were seeking post-abortion care.
We often talk about the need for family planning, about the need for birth control, particularly in the poorer countries. What do you think will be the long-term impact on women and on couples in countries like Africa because of this global gag rule?
At a global level, I think that the global gag rule is reversing a lot of the gains that we have made in terms of achieving universal access to reproductive health. I think that the global gag rule is reversing a lot of the gains that we hope to make in achieving the Millennium Development Goals. So it's not only a change that affects us at the family level or the community level. I think that the global gag rule sets us back at a global level in terms of improving women's reproductive health.
I suppose this state of affairs will continue until the US gets a different president who has different opinions. Sanda Ojiambo, thank you very much indeed for discussing this with Everywoman. It's thought 200,000 women were forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese army during World War II. Known as comfort women, young girls across the Far East were coerced into military brothels. Japan says it's shown enough remorse over the issue, but others don't agree. A US congressional committee has just passed a resolution calling for a formal acknowledgement of the abuse and an official apology. Well, so far the Japanese Prime Minister has refused to comment. One former comfort woman, Lu Man-mei, is among those fighting for compensation from the Japanese government. She spoke of her ordeal to Julin Ong.
80-year-old Lu Man-mei is seeking justice.
I'm
going to Japan to fight. I want compensation. I want an apology.
60 years ago in Taiwan, Man-mei, like thousands of girls in Japanese-occupied territories, was forced to work in a military brothel as a sex slave or comfort woman.
I was told to work as a nurse, but I ended up in Hainan. I had to service 20 soldiers a day. The doctors would carry out medical checkups and sterilizations. When they discovered I was pregnant, I was sent to Taiwan. I didn't dare tell anyone. No one dared ask. And we didn't want to talk about it.
A lifetime later, Man-mei is speaking up. Photos of herself and other comfort women are a reminder of the marriages they never had. Despite years of campaigning, they have yet to receive proper restitution or an apology from the Japanese government. Today, Man-mei hopes to persuade another former comfort woman to brave Japan again. This time to tell school teachers of their ordeals. Like Man-mei, Su Yan-jiao was promised a waitressing job on Hainan Island, but instead was forced into prostitution. Yan-jiao is unable to make it, but Man-mei is determined to go. She knows time is running out.
Japan lost the war, but they can't accept it. Why can't they apologize? I will fight on until I die.
4 weeks later, Man-mei has come to claim her rightful place in the history books of Japan. Another former comfort woman, Ah Tao, is with her. Accompanied by social workers from the Taipei Women's Foundation, they head straight to the Tokyo suburb of Saitama, whose mayor had recently called comfort women a wartime fallacy.
I can't accept it. Comfort women are a fact, but the Japanese refuse to recognize this.
I hope the teachers can help an old lady like me. Tell the students, tell the world, I'm not ashamed.
Both in their 80s, the two women address a room of Japanese school teachers whose textbooks bear little trace of their suffering.
I was tricked. I was recruited as a nurse, but ended up being a comfort woman. When I was pregnant a year later, they sent me back to Taiwan, but the baby died.
When I was 17, I was on my way to school. The police took me by force and shipped us to the Andaman. We were young and naive. You Japanese dragged us to the war zone. If it's all a lie, what are young girls doing in a war zone?
For 2 hours, the school teachers stay and listen.
I heard you have a new mayor. If he doesn't help, it's okay. But if he talks bad about us, that's not good.
The women's stories strike a chord.
In school, history lessons only touched on the subject of comfort women. I realize now what happened. I feel both angry and sad.
I think the Japanese government is very ashamed of this fact and doesn't wish to face the truth or deal with a compensation issue. Since we have made the mistake, we should try to seek these countries' forgiveness.
This is a very important event because for the longest time we've been pushing the Japanese government to include this history in their textbook. We were hoping that these teachers will be inspired and then will be willing to put these in their curriculum. Hopefully, even if it's not formally, that will be a start. So we think this is a breakthrough for our whole movement.
I could see the teachers were moved to tears. I was touched. Not all Japanese are bad, just as not all Taiwanese are good. But if they don't compensate us, at least apologize. I won't rest until I die.
And of course, we'll keep you updated on the women's fight for a government apology. Well, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, one girl's horrifying account of life as a child soldier in Africa.